basically a lot of the things I've learned outside of academia as a freelance science writer. Okay, so last time we talked about unethical communication. We went through 6 types of unethical communication. We talked about examples, and we basically noted that if you don't communicate ethically, authorities will do it for you. And that's kind of, no one wants that because it looks bad, it harms people. So we're going to talk about intro to marketing and public relations. Facts don't speak for themselves. Scientists like to think the facts speak for themselves, but the facts don't speak for themselves. People have to communicate the facts in a certain way that they are compelling and understandable narrative, and there's entire fields dedicated to doing this. So let's sort of talk about marketing and public relations as fields outside of science that have a lot of informative insights that can be used for scientists to communicate better. So what is marketing? It typically attracts customers to a company's products or services in order to make money. It doesn't have to have revenue generation as the end goal. You can market yourself. Like if you're on the job market, you can market your ideas, you can raise awareness. Marketing is a broad term. It involves identifying audience needs and wants, promoting products, people, events, etc., through advertising, public relations, sales promotions, etc. And it also involves building and maintaining relationships with customers. Public relations is similar to marketing, but it's not marketing. Public relations is a strategic process. It involves relationship building and communication, and it involves communicating information between the public and key stakeholders. So the main goals of PR are establishing relationships between an organization, its target audience, media, policymakers, etc., informing and persuading people, earning public understanding, and or gaining a strategic advantage, such as having a good reputation. So another thing, we talk a lot about science writing, but there's a specific kind of science writing called copywriting, and that's a type of marketing writing. It involves explaining complex scientific concepts in a clear and compelling way to a general audience. So the main goals of science copywriting are to inform and educate the public about the scientific topics, products, or services, persuade readers to take a desired action, such as purchasing a product or supporting research, and build trust and credibility for the organization or individual by demonstrating expertise. So copywriting is like you see a cereal box, you read the back of the cereal box, it's like, quench your hunger with our great cereal. And you're like, oh, wow, that's so fun and engaging. And so science copywriting is like that, but for like scientific products, like for example, vaccines, or let's say different medicines that come out, or, you know, like a box of Band-Aids, just stuff like that. And science copywriting is meant for people, just everyday people. It's not meant for scientists. It's a different class of copywriting than just like back of the cereal box copywriting because it involves science. So like if you get the person that does like Fruit Loops copywriting, tell them to write like the copywriting for, you know, like a vaccine website, they wouldn't be able to do it because they don't have a science background. I mean, maybe they would after reading about it a lot, but the best person for that is like teach a scientist copywriting and then ask them to do it. And I think that science copywriting didn't exist before the pandemic on any real level because mostly just marketers did it, people with no science background, because you can throw yourself into a topic and learn about it, but science copywriting is definitely becoming post-pandemic. The pandemic revealed this need for science copywriters. So it's kind of merging these two areas, scientific expertise and copywriting expertise, because writing is a craft. By writing more and more, you can develop your craft of writing and you can write about anything. So some key aspects, and anyone can do this. So some key aspects that distinguish science copywriting include writing in plain jargon-free language, having a logical content structure to guide the reader through the information, highlighting the benefits and real-world applications of scientific advances, adhering to scientific standards of accuracy and objectivity, which is something that your run-of-the-mill copywriter probably can't do as a non-scientist. And lastly, these kind of like small things that I think scientists would be exceptional at if they knew about the fact that these things exist, optimizing content for search engines, using relevant keywords and phrases. So after the pandemic, we talked about all of the different things that you have to do to build trust with audiences in previous lectures. And so science marketing is its own new field. And so we have to bridge these two worlds of marketing and science, because if you talk to scientists, they think advertisements are total just fluff. If you talk to a marketer, they don't have the scientific expertise because they might have never worked in a lab, or they may not have even taken a math or science class besides, like, high school math or high school science. So science copywriters kind of bridge both worlds. They can write all kinds of content, website copy, product descriptions, white papers, brochures, press releases, and social media posts. We've written many of these specialized marketing documents as scientists, but they don't go by the same names. And actually, when I was starting out as a freelance writer, and I write about this in my book, Science X Marketing, which is like all about bridging these two worlds, is I didn't know what anyone, like, marketing buzzwords are totally real. Like, I'd hop on a call, I was like, oh great, another marketer. They're just gonna like do marketing stuff. Because science communication, scientists speak very informationally, but we're also like friends as scientists. Um, so like I would go when I was in working as a research assistant, I would go grocery shopping with my lab mates because we were friends. But as a marketer, there's so many more people to talk to. It's so much more formal. You could have like 3 Zooms with people you've never met and just they expect you to just talk to them like you don't feel totally overwhelmed that you've never met them before and you know nothing about them. And you can try to read about them, but it's like the hard part about, especially in the remote world, is you're kind of like on these like, especially when you're doing like discovery calls to get new clients, you're kind of like, I don't know who this person is. Will they like me? Will I make a good impression? Kind of all those things that you worry about when you meet a new person, but then you're forced to do those over and over. And because you don't talk to them that much, you're kind of disposable in a way as a marketer. And I don't think science is like that, because in science, you do your science, you're the go-to person for like X, but in marketing, it's just like there's a million of us and we are all just talking to each other every day. And I really think that's really hard to transition from this like very relational, very informal world where we're all thinking about facts to this very, very formal world where we're all just talking to each other all the time. And sometimes marketers, like, I've never experienced the rudeness I experienced as a marketer in science. Like, I experienced like different other things, but never like people just talking to you and calling you stupid to your face. And it's kind of like those things shouldn't really matter. Like when it's not professional to call someone stupid. So hopefully you would never call someone stupid on a marketing call. Maybe it's because I'm a woman in science and in marketing. There's a lot of women in marketing and communications in general, and also a lot of women in neuroscience and like psychology and related disciplines, which I am in. But I'm trying to say these are two different worlds and they don't work the same way at all. So the what I was trying to say also is when I was on these calls with these like marketing people, they would be like, I think like, I don't want to say when I first started out, I was getting paid not that much. And they would say, hey, can you write 1,000 words? And I would write 1,000 words and send it to them. And then I started getting more and more different clients and they'd say, hey, can you write some copy? And I was like, what is copy? So then I Googled it, and copy is apparently like marketing writing. So like, can you write a copy? It's 1,000 words. Like, yeah, I can write a copy. And then I realized if you learn these like actual phrases that they use for different stuff, you can charge more, because you can say, hey, I'm a marketer. Like, I operate in this world, this incredibly mean, it's not mean, it's like going on, what are those things called? Speed dating, but like speed dating where you can get dropped just by like being rude for a second, or like by saying the wrong thing, or by like misspeaking. It's like first impressions matter so much more in marketing than they do in science, I feel, because in science, um, I still feel that science is so much more relational than marketing in some ways. But like, you got to know these terms. So the point of my ramble is I learned all these different lingo that I didn't know existed, and so I'm going to share some of them with you. So strategic communications. So I didn't even know this was a thing. Strategic communication is when you communicate to achieve a goal. So let's say I, oh, I guess I'm not sharing them with you today. Why am I not sharing them with you today? Maybe I'm sharing them with you next week. Let me check and see if I am. Hold on. let me open my slides. So I was going to go into this whole ramble about here. Maybe I can pull up my blog. Let me double check the slides because this would be, where is this? Give me 1 second, everyone. But you know what? I will just pull up my blog that I wrote about this and we can go through those. So the point is, I learned that if you learn the different phrases they use to talk about these different kinds of writing, you can actually make a lot more money. So let's go here. Let me share my screen. This is from my book actually, but I really wanted to talk about this because, and we're just going to look at the headlines here, because the two worlds, like in a way, in my mind, and maybe probably, hopefully in reality also, if you learn, like, there's different kinds of writing, and if you learn the different names for them, you can interface more effectively in the marketing world. So we have the swipe file. So the swipe file is something where you basically, like, let's say you see an ad you really like. You cut out the ad, you put it on your wall for inspiration. I did that a lot as a college student at MIT. I'd write like different quotes that I found really inspiring on my wall because I lived in a really old dorm and you could write on the walls because my dorm at MIT was probably like the second or third oldest dorm, and they had stopped maintaining it. So we just could like write whatever. So I basically created like an inspiration board or like of different quotes I liked that I found as I was reading. And it was a great compliment actually to the left brain nature of MIT because and I was also studying psycholinguistics as a cognitive neuroscientist. So I was kind of like bridging this gap of the two worlds. So I kind of created a swipe file for myself. A swipe file is like an assortment of marketing or ad stuff that you really like that inspires you. And like you can get inspiration from anywhere. It's kind of like a Pinterest for like advertisements. Marketers and advertisers are always talking about the swipe file, like, oh, this commercial is so great, we got to add it to the swipe file. So that's one thing. Science copywriting, we already talked about it. I would define it in just everyday people language as convincing people with scientific evidence. And if you know what science copywriting is, you can make a lot of money because people are always hiring science copywriters and they really value their expertise. So that's another one. White papers. White papers are used in a lot of different industries. They're often used in finance. I know that Moderna actually had a white paper talking about its mRNA platform a really long time ago, like before it even, because it was a company for several years before it started making vaccines. So white papers are just, in my mind, they're defined as explaining exactly what someone needs to know to understand a topic in just a few pages. So thought leadership. So I was going to say another thing about white papers is that people always write them because like you don't always have time to like do a deep dive into like a topic. So white papers do the deep dive for you and they kind of just tell you everything you need to know about it. So it's kind of like you get briefed on a topic by reading a white paper. And I've written a few white papers for Congress and they're more like research reports. And we're really used to writing research reports in science, but like in the business world, a lot of stuff goes with white papers, like a new technology can be explained with a white paper. So thought leadership is huge these days, and it's basically nothing more than public facing communication of expertise. So like there's a lot of thought leaders on Instagram and LinkedIn. Well, there's not a lot of, I don't know if there's thought leaders on Instagram, but there are a lot of thought leaders on LinkedIn. And they're always like publishing their ideas and sharing their ideas and stuff. And they're actually just publicly communicating their expertise. So that's another one. And I think that's it. But yeah, so it's like stuff like this. And there's actually even more of these. There's tons and tons of different phrases. I keep discovering new ones and I'm like, oh wow, really? Like that's a thing. I can say I do that and get charged and like, charge people a lot for that. And I think one thing that holds scientists back from working in marketing and like being able to truly interface with these people is this language and the because you get on the discovery call with like a client, they're immediately just start talking in marketing. They don't have a lot of time. Sometimes they act really important and like often are rude, but the reason they are like that is because they just want to have this discussion and know what you have to offer them. And I've done like tons and tons of these over the years, and um, they go very fast. Like I don't think we have anything in science that goes that fast because science is about fact. It's so slow and deliberative, and we really need to kind of like learn these lessons about like being able to, you know, like answer rapid fire questions about something. And like, yeah, I guess you did that your thesis defense, but um, I feel like scientists have a disadvantage from not knowing about not knowing these things. And like, if we had like, if we learned more about like how to be on a Zoom with someone that just wants to know what you can do for them and maybe even pick your brain a little bit, I think that that would help a lot. So I kind of rambled a lot and I went off my slides. Let's see if I can pull this up again and look at the discussion question for this week. I could have sworn I added those slides there, but I haven't looked at the slides in several months, so maybe I clearly did not. So let's stop recording and discuss, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.